Okay. Good evening and welcome to the April 21st, 2020 meeting of the Wolfeboro Planning. I'm the chairman of the planning board, and due to the COVID-19 crisis and in accordance with Governor Sununu's emergency order number 12, pursuant to executive order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Please note there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are, and I'm going to go through the following list. First, A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We're utilizing the GoToMeeting platform for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through the GoToMeeting platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the following phone number, 1-646-749-3122, followed by the audio access code 98242-429, or by video following the directions on the Town of Wolfeboro website posted on the homepage under the virtual town meeting information page. B, we're providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of how to access the meeting using GoToMeeting, and instructions are provided on the Town of Wolfeboro website at wolfeboronh.us on the virtual town meeting login information page. C, we're providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem accessing the meeting via phone or computer, please immediately call 603-391-8489 or email planning director at wolfeboronh.us. D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event that the public is unable to access the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting and have it rescheduled at that time. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Meeting notes. Members of the board will be unmuted for the entirety of the meeting. Members of the public will be muted for the meeting, with the exception of public comment portions or public hearings. I'd like to start the meeting with a roll call attendance. When I call your name, please state that you're present, and also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting. This is required under the right to know law. Okay, I'm now going to call the roll. Von Dugan.
Here with slightly sentient dog.
Mike Hodder.
Here with no other sentient being in the room.
All right. Peter Goodwin. Peter's is muted. Matt, can you unmute him?
Peter needs. There we go.
Okay.
Here with no one else in this room at the time.
Okay. All right. Brad Harriman.
Yeah, Brad Harriman is present, and there is nobody else in the room with me at this time.
Okay, and I'm Kathy Barnard, and there is no one. I'm present, and no one is in the room with. And Matt Sullivan, do I need to include you, or just acknowledge that you're present?
No, I think acknowledging that I'm present is fine. I have no one. I'm alone again this evening in the room. sadly.
And, okay, all right. And we mentioned Leanne is also present. Is that?
I'm here.
Yeah,
I
Leanne is
do
on
have a
video. You should be
person.
able to see her.
I do have a person, Alan. He's working too.
Okay.
So he's present.
Oh, okay. So, taking for the first item, the next item is action items, and the first action item. Oh,
Her excuse, obviously.
What was that? I'm sorry, Matt.
You lost your audio feed, Matt.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry. Okay. The first item is the
Really?
election of
Oh my gosh.
20 planning board officers. And the first item is the election of the chairman. Do I have any nominations for the chairman for the next year of the planning board?
I nominate Kathy Bernard.
Seconded.
Okay. All right. Any other nominations? Okay, we'll close the nominations and do a roll call vote. Von Dugan,
Yes.
Mike Hodder,
Yes.
Peter Goodwin,
Yes.
Brad Harriman,
Yes.
and Kathy Barnett. I'll vote in favor of myself because I really do like doing this job. So thank you, folks. Okay, the next item is the election of the vice chairman. Any nominations?
I'd like to nominate myself.
I
Okay,
second that.
okay, any other nominations? Okay, I'll close the nominations and have a roll call vote. First, Von Dugan,
Yes.
okay, Mike Hodder,
Why not? Yes.
yes, okay, Peter,
I know the guy.
Peter Goodwin says yes.
okay, Brad Harriman,
Yes.
okay. We have
I would add that Vaughn got out of that, huh?
I didn't even know that was coming.
Okay, well, Vaughn, thank you very much.
I was
Thank you.
happy to second. That's good.
Okay, on to the next issue is the committee appointments. The Wayfinding Sign Committee, I think it would be good if we keep that committee going just and have one more time to see how they want to proceed. We had some suggestions. Could we go with the same committee? Is that okay with everyone? Peter, I know you really enjoyed your time on that committee.
Every moment on the committee has been a delight.
Right.
Well, we should continue on, shouldn't we?
Yeah. So is it okay if we continue with that? The committee members that they've been serving for several years now, actually.
The number of meetings is not huge, and they all know the issues. We've been through it before, so probably that committee is the best one to continue.
Okay. Can we just do that, Matt? Just indicate by consensus? Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Okay, the CIP committee, that is, needs to be dealt with differently. We did put an ad in the Granite State News requesting people who were interested, and I don't believe that we received any new folks, did we, Matt? We're
Can
interested.
everybody hear me okay? Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I had to tell people in the house to stop streaming their favorite Netflix movie. We did not receive any interest from the newspaper advertisement directly. Only the 3 re-ups from the previous year's appointments.
Okay, so that was Paul Whalen, Chuck Sumner, and Suzanne Ryan. I thought they were all really good members. Tim Cronin is not interested in participating again.
That's
Isn't
too
that
bad.
right? Yes.
That's too bad. He was a good member.
Yes, he was. So
Are we dealing with the alternates or the public members now, Kathy, or are we dealing with the planning board members first?
Well, that's what I was just going to mention. I believe at the selectmen's meeting, Paul is interested in continuing. Is that right, Brad?
We had at our meeting, we all decided to keep the same board appointments that we had the previous year.
Okay.
So I believe Paul was on that this past year, so he would like to continue.
Okay.
And Linda was the alternate.
Correct.
Yes, right. And I think the budget committee appointment, Leanne, do you know if they've discussed this or not?
No, the budget committee hasn't met since January, actually, and we have not scheduled a meeting, so they have not appointed their representative.
Oh, okay, so I guess we need to get in touch with them. I'm sure that Bob would like to continue.
I'm sure.
From conversation.
Yeah, I have to schedule a meeting anyway, so I'll contact them and then I'll shoot you and Matt an email.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. And Matt, have you heard anything from the school board yet? We really need a letter from him if
So,
representative is
Kathy,
gonna...
I haven't heard from the board, but the timing of the request was not good in the sense that I sent the request just when the COVID issue arose within the district. So I'm not surprised that I have not heard, but I am aware of the fact that the board is requiring formal appointment prior to a membership on the committee.
Okay, so could we go ahead and vote on the 3 citizen members and Paul?
So
I'd be
Kathy,
happy
the request under
Sorry.
this item was actually to appoint the planning board members first to the committee.
Oh, that's
And
right.
then under
Okay.
a later agenda item, make the appointments of the public members.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry about that.
I'm sorry, I could have put them together, but this was really
Yeah.
focused on the planning board representation
Yeah,
to the committee.
Okay. Well, I guess I just sort of assumed that Mike enjoyed the committee so much that he would continue. Is that right, Mike?
That's actually true. It's a good
Okay.
committee and I enjoyed being on it. So I'd be happy to be reappointed if that's the board's pleasure.
Okay. Does anybody have any objections to that? And do you have any objections if I continue?
I'd be happy to nominate Kathy Barnard to be chairman of the CIP committee as she was last year in the interest of continuity and expertise.
Okay.
I'll second.
Oh, okay, then, all right, any other nominations? Okay, then do a roll call vote. Von Dugan,
Yes.
Mike Hodder,
Yes.
Peter Goodwin,
Yes.
Brad Harriman,
Yes.
and Kathy Barnard. I'll vote in favor, I guess. Now, do we need a nomination for Mike to continue? Because I can make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. The motion has been made and seconded to appoint Mike Hodder as the planning board representative to the CIP. Roll call vote, Von Dugan,
Yes.
Mike Hodder,
Yes.
Peter Goodwin,
Yes.
Brad Harriman,
Yes.
And Kathy Barnard, I'll vote in favor. Now can we vote on the citizens and Paul O'Brien? If so, I'll make a motion to appoint for a year Paul Whalen, Chuck Sumner, Suzanne, Paul O'Brien, who's the Board of Selectmen's representative, and Linda Murray as the alternate. So that's my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Roll call, Von Dugan,
Yes.
Mike Hodder,
Yes.
Peter Goodwin,
Yes.
Brad Harriman,
Yes.
Kathy Barnard. I'll vote in favor. Okay, so anything else for CIP, Matt? Matt? You're muted, Matt.
No, I'm sorry about that. No, nothing else for CIP, but I will get back to you with the school board representation and the budget committee as Leanne gets the appointment information from the committee.
Okay. All right. So now we can go on to the rules of procedure.
And if I could just comment quickly, Kathy, on
Yes,
the planning
sure.
board alternate, I want to thank for identifying a statutory issue with Mr. Baldock's appointment. Therefore, his appointment will not be considered.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
That's okay. I just want to make sure we covered it. But we did recognize the statutory conflict. Therefore, Mr. Baldock will not be considered this evening for a planning board alternate role for years. We will be in conversation as soon as these change in the future, but he has withdrawn his request functionally from this evening's agenda.
Okay, and we didn't have anyone else that indicated an interest, right?
We did not.
Okay. Okay, now on to the rules of procedure.
So, Madam Chair, if I might, I just recognized a minor issue in the planning board rules of procedure when I was actually going to post the alternate positions in the newspaper. The board's current rules of procedure defined a maximum of 3 members with no real clear term definition. And in the end, that works out to be in conflict with RSA 673-6, which is appointment number in terms of alternate members, which prescribes 5 alternate members of the board, which are to be serving in staggered 3-year terms. It's a relatively small issue, but I did recommend a rules of procedure amendment document, and that would simply be shown in the track changes attached. And then the third item under members. The way the rules of procedure read, to review at one meeting and then schedule an actual adoption meeting, and I've recommended that you consider that at the work session in May because of the workload at the first meeting in May. So I would propose that for the meeting on May 19th. If the board has any questions, happy to answer them. If not, you could just announce that you're going to read it.
Clarify what staggered means?
So staggered is somewhat flexible intentionally, Vaughn, but the idea is that if you don't want everybody serving
Okay. Well,
in the 3-year term at the same time, so that you have a complete overhaul at the end of that 3-year term. So ideally, for term process, you wonder in order to see.
So Matt, you may have to slow down and repeat. You blacked out and pixelated, and we didn't hear you.
Yeah, your feed is all breaking up, Matt.
Okay. Kathy, do you want to return to this agenda item in a few minutes and move on to the impact fee? And I'll describe what's going on with the rules of procedure amendment in just a few minutes when I can fix my connection.
okay, and so you want to go on to the impact fee waiver request? Okay,
Yes.
are you
I
going to
think
go?
that's a yes.
Okay, Matt, are you going to go through that for us, or?
Yes, I will. If you could just give me one moment, I'm just going to slightly relocate where I am.
Okay.
The wonders of technology. At
Yes.
the same time, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we couldn't do any of this.
Right.
Well, you're right.
So I apologize for that. Can the board hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yep.
So let me actually close out the rules of procedure issue now that hopefully you can hear me much better. So Vaughn, what I was trying to explain is that in order to start the staggering of the terms, the board typically makes 2 appointments of 3 years, 2 appointments of 2 years, and 1 appointment of 1 year. The idea is to ensure that there's some overlap of terms so that there's not a complete overhaul of all of the alternates at one time. That's typically how you start. In this case, because we have no alternates, I was suggesting 1 3-year appointment to ensure that that person is on for the longest period of time possible. But staggered really just means that you don't have a complete overhaul of those 5 alternates at one time. You want to sort of stagger it over the years that they're appointed.
So we have none right now.
Correct. I mean, and that's why we even did the outreach to get some potentially interested members. I'm concerned about, and this is not a commentary on the existing board, but I just am concerned that we don't have anyone that would step up in the and potentially step up to a future. To talk to Kathy, and we had really wanted to try and do some outreach to potentially recruit some new members, and unfortunately we didn't receive any interest from the public.
So is Dave Alessandroni no longer an alternate?
Am I still
Right.
pixelated?
Yes, yeah, a little, yeah. But to answer your question, Mike, he is no
Okay,
longer.
all right.
Okay.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions about the rules of procedure? So Matt, we can go ahead and vote tonight and then continue this item until May 15th. Is that how we should do it, or just continue?
So what you should do is announce that you were going to consider the amendment at the May 19th meeting.
19th, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay?
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so does anybody have any questions or issues? Then I'll make a motion to continue this item to the May 19th work session, planning board meeting.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Roll call vote. Von Dugan,
Aye.
Mike Hodder,
Yes.
Peter Goodwin,
Yes.
Brad Harriman,
Yes.
and Kathy Barnard. I'll vote yes. Okay, on to the impact fee waiver request. Matt,
Thank
do
you.
wanna walk
Sure.
us through this?
Sure, I'm happy to. And if you lose me at any time, please just let me know. I'll try to make a technology switch somewhere in the middle of the meeting. I hope that you all received my memorandum dealing with the impact fee from the gentleman who is on the call this evening. I don't know how frequently the board has considered impact fee waivers. That has not happened in my time with the town. I'm not sure if it's happened in the recent history. But clearly this applicant has put together a fairly detailed request and response to the impact fee waiver provision of the ordinance. However, the argument that I've made in my memorandum is that despite the compellingness, if you will, of the case, the waiver provision is very strict. It really provides only 2 safety valves, I suppose, for an applicant to apply under for a waiver. One is age-restricted housing, And one is a situation in which the applicant is actually, or the developer is actually making a contribution to the town in some other financial manner. Neither of those cases apply here, and for that reason, I think the board may not be allowed functionally to grant a waiver. But I do want to emphasize two things. One, I believe that these waiver requests will become more frequent, and I think that we've had several discussions, or you have had several discussions as a board about whether or not the impact fee methodology and basis still makes sense moving forward. I think this is a reason to consider it as part of this year's work plan. But the second point the second note I would make, and I hate to sort of steal something that I know Mr. Harder will address, but the board does have flexibility when it comes to actually defining how the impact fee is collected. While the amount and collecting the fee may not be flexible, you do have the ability to set up functionally a payment plan or the like through the ordinance that exists if you choose to enter into such with an applicant. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the waiver request. I know that Jimmy, who is the applicant, is on the call if you have any specific questions for him. But again, I think the board is somewhat constrained by the fact that the ordinance simply does not provide a means to grant a waiver with the exception of those two very specific cases. And hopefully you heard all of that.
So I have a question, Matt. There's some language in here about subdivision. This is not subdivision.
Well, yeah, that's correct. But this case does apply as a form of new development within the impact fee ordinance. So it is subject to the impact fee.
But it is not a subdivision.
Correct. That is correct.
As I see it, if I can jump in, there are two issues we have to deal with here. One, the appropriateness of the impact fee ordinance in general, and two, the appropriateness of its application in this specific case. I'd like to suggest that the impact fee ordinance itself should be put on our work schedule for careful examination. Personally, I don't think it works any longer. I'm not sure it ever worked, except in very flush times, the way it was intended to work. And secondly, if you look at this fee schedule set up by the ordinance, it's a one-size-fits-all fee schedule. So in the case of Mr. Kulog, looking to build a cabin in the back of Beyond with about $75,000 to spend on the entire project, he is assessed the same impact fee somebody building a single-family home in Sewell Road, 3 stories on a half an acre, valued at over $1 million, would be assessed. There's clearly an imbalance here, and that suggests to me that the structure of the ordinance needs to be examined carefully, because I don't think it's fair. And I don't think, given the current situation, that it is even appropriate for the economic life of the town. I suggest that it may well have a chilling effect on growth in exactly those areas in the town where we would like to encourage growth: low to middle income housing, single family, possibly no children, retirees. The majority of the people coming up here now are in that demographic. They're all being assessed an impact fee. Same as if we're coming up with 6 children in a family, going to make a significant impact on the school system. A retired couple with no children making a minimal impact, and in the case of Mr. Kulaga, identical, no children whatsoever, minimal impact, off the grid, photovoltaic power cells, his own septic and his own well. Driving on the roads is about the biggest impact he's going to be making on town services. He's going to be paying the same fee, unless we find some way of getting him relief, as a 6 children family building a house in a desirable part of town, worth significantly more than the value of the place he proposes. So rather than continuing on much longer, and boring you all, I think this ordinance needs to be examined in a work session. As far as Mr. Kulog is concerned, we do have the opportunity to provide some form of relief. In our ordinances, we are, as Matt said, allowed to set up a payment schedule for paying off the assessed impact fee. There's no way he can avoid paying the fee. He has to abide by the current ordinance. We don't have the ability to waive it in his case. Yet we don't want to burden somebody in his particular case unnecessarily. So I could suggest a payment schedule for this particular case that would spread out the pain of paying the $4,000 that he's assessed, approximately $4,000 that he's assessed, over a period of time to lessen the impact in any one particular year.
Right, yeah, I don't see any ability for the planning board to grant a waiver in this case. But I certainly think that it would meet the criteria under 173-8E, and that's the establishing the ultimate schedule of payment. And I think that seems to be, maybe from the planning board's perspective, about the only option we have.
Yeah, I'd be happy to propose a payment schedule idea for the board to consider. It would require imposing a lien on the property to the value of the full fee, but it would also allow the first payment of $400 due 5 years after the CO is issued, and then payments of $400 per year thereafter until the full impact fee is paid off. So we have a tax lien, we have essentially a tax lien on, or the assessment lien on the property, which will guarantee the full payment of the assessment, but we create terms which, in Mr. Kulaga's case, are extremely favorable, don't get in the way of his obtaining a CO, spread the payments over a period of time, give the guy a chance to build his cabin, get his organic farm going, start bringing in some income, being able to pay his way, and live the life he came up here from Mississippi to live, or Missouri, wherever it was, Missouri. So that would be my suggestion to the board.
Okay, other thoughts or comments?
Peter here, and I guess I would suggest that I like the tone of what Mike has suggested. I think that's a good plan in this particular case for this particular house. I don't think that there is real impact on the town, but we can't get out of our legal responsibilities. At the same time, we do need to think going forward that not all houses are necessarily going to be in this category. And if you end up saying that somebody who wants to build a house and they're a retired couple and don't have any children, so therefore they don't impact things, they can sell their house the day after, and there are more people in it. And so therefore the work session should look to those particular issues as to how we deal with the fact that it is something which is associated with the property, not with the individuals which are on it. But I do support Mike's suggestion on this particular waiver.
Okay. Other thoughts or?
I would just ask that whatever the board chooses to do tonight, I would like an opportunity to talk to the applicant prior to actually concreting a plan, just to make sure that he is totally comfortable with whatever recommendation the board has. And if he's not, then I would come back to you with an alternative proposal from him if that's necessary.
And we would,
Well,
then
I
let's
would,
not-
I would also suggest that there's a possibility that with a work session that the fees are going to be reduced in the future, so therefore he may not be as impacted as he was before.
I don't think that we can, I don't think if we come to revise the ordinance in any form whatsoever, I don't think it's going to we will not become effective until it's voted on next March. So between now and next March, there's no way that we can delay assessing the impact fee on Mr. Kulaga because he's liable for it now.
Right.
So we sort of have to come up with a solution for him and then proceed with revising the ordinance in whatever way we intend to do. I would suggest that if my proposal is in the minutes, that Matt talk to Jimmy, get his input, and then let's rediscuss this again on the May 19 work session with his input, and then vote at that point about, then basically decide at that point what we're going to do.
Yeah, how's everybody feel about that? Do you think that would be fair?
Rather than imposing a plan on, the plan I suggest is favorable, and I can't imagine that he's going to object to it. But if Matt wants to get his input before it gets implemented, we can delay a little bit.
I think that's a good move.
Okay.
So
Alright.
does it get implemented upon the pulling of a building permit?
So the fee gets collected prior to the issuance of a CO.
Huh.
So
But
this
isn't
plan,
that assessed at the time the permit is issued?
I'm sorry, Kathy, say that again?
Well, isn't there some indication that it's assessed when the permit?
Yes. So when the applicant receives a single-family dwelling unit permit, they receive notification of the impact fee and that it will be assessed. But they are also not required to pay it until such time that they apply for their certificate of occupancy.
right?
Okay, right. So is it okay with board members then if we continue this until the meeting?
The next work session.
Yeah, the next work session, which would be May 19th.
Okay, and I'll coordinate with the applicant. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to note.
I would move that, Kathy.
Okay.
I'll coordinate with the applicant about the proposal that Mike brought forward with both the timing and the fee payments and the lien. I'll have a discussion with him.
Okay, so Mike made a motion to table and continue this item until May 19th. I'll second it and do the roll call. Von Dugan,
Yes.
Mike Hodder,
Yes.
Peter Goodwin,
Yes.
Brad Harriman,
Yes.
and Kathy Barnard. I'll vote in favor of the motion. Okay, all right, well, thanks, Matt. So we'll deal with this again in May. All right, okay. The next item, scheduled appointments, we don't have any. Next item are public comments. Any member of the public who wants to comment, you can do that at this time.
Yeah, this is Jimmy. You guys were just going over my impact fee.
Okay.
I was wondering if I made like a donation of like $500 to the town, does that count for the waiver? Would that be a donation, or was it a donation of land or something like that? So
I'm happy to answer that question. So Jimmy, I appreciate the offer, and as much as we would love to accept donations as a town, unfortunately the ordinance requires that if a fee is paid to the town, it has to be in the form of some land or some general value to the community. So the idea of a $500 donation, although it's a nice idea, it needs to be for some specific purpose within the context of the ordinance. So it's a little tricky to work with a donation in that form.
Yeah. I mean, I do plan on creating this small farm and bringing people to Wolfeboro. I feel like I would add something to the town there.
Yeah, and
I do bring value. I'll be working the land and making something of it, or otherwise it'd be sitting there. I'll be paying taxes as well to the town. Just a few things I throw out there.
No, sure, that's fair. And I certainly, I hope, I know actually that no member of the board questions that you won't bring value to the community. It's simply a matter of the contribution to the town needs to be very concrete in scope and value. And it's not your fault or the argument that you're making. It's quite frankly the product of a very state statute and the way that it's written. So although there's no question, I'm sure you'll bring value to the community, the board needs something very concrete in front of it in order to waive this impact fee. Typically, it's in the form of some donation of conservation land, could be in the form of some sort of public infrastructure improvement like a pump station or something to that effect, or even something specifically related to the school in the context of our zoning ordinance. But it's a little tricky when it comes to defining value, and therefore the definition is very narrow in the ordinance and the state statute.
All right. Oh, well, thanks for hearing me out, guys.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and we'll talk about this again in May after you've had another opportunity to Matt.
Yeah.
Okay,
So Jimmy, let's just try to connect this coming week or the week after. Okay.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to other business. The first item was the short-term rental committee, and this you all received a copy of an email that I had sent to somebody who lives in Springfield Point, and she responded. She feels very strongly that the committee that we appointed is an unbalanced committee, as she said in her email. And the reason I put this on the agenda is because I had that conversation, but then we also heard from another neighborhood association. So I just thought I should bring this to the attention of the planning board. I told both folks that expressed concerns that they're certainly welcome to come to the meeting, and we have public comments. Anyway, so I don't know if we should make any change. As I said, I really wanted to make you folks aware of the issue more than anything else. Okay. Okay. Discussion of site plan review checklist. Matt, did you want to go over this? But I do have a question. I mean, is that something that Terry is going to deal with when an application comes in, or?
So, yeah, and okay. And I actually hesitate only because it really is an internal document that we're going to start to use more actively. We have received comment and critique from applicants that our existing format and checklist within our site plan review, and actually our subdivision application as well, but the checklists aren't exactly intuitive, and they don't give good guidance about what information is necessary in an application. And the result is that we're often collecting additional information that is not necessarily clear in our requirements, but may be clear within the site plan review regulations themselves. So what we tried to do here, again, it's really just for comment this evening, but we wanted to clearly delineate all of the requirements that we have within an application. Additionally, some supplemental requirements that may be as needed, very specific requirements for the abutter notifications. And then what I hope the board will use is both a submitted checklist, so the applicants actually, they certify that they've provided that document, and a reviewed checklist for staff to look at when they actually go through the application. So this is really something that I would be looking at, Kathy.
Oh,
It
okay.
wouldn't necessarily demonstrate compliance, but it would demonstrate that those items are included in the application. Because I think it's often that even when I'm going through an application here, I forget something like snow storage, or I forget something that's in the site plan review regulations. And frankly, it's because we don't have a checklist of this kind. So this is really just an administrative tool that we wanted to put together, and I wanted to share it with you in advance and make sure it's not missing anything. I wanted to point out just a few pieces that are a little new that I don't feel require a board vote, but I have added in the requirement for a digital plan set and digital application. The reason for that is actually twofold. One, as we're currently under these circumstances, having a digital copy of the application is critical for us to be able to post it online for abutters and the public. The second reason is that moving into the future, when we do hopefully file digitally for our internal use. So that's one addition. And then aside from that, I'm happy to answer questions about the other requirements. But we did add in something new on the very back page of this packet, which I do think that the board needs to vote on, though not this evening. And that is a set of common site plan notes. And what I've tried to do here is take kind of the best example that we would possibly see on a set of site plan review plan set, and actually define notes that we would need to see on every application, particularly for new development, in order to ensure that the application is complete. And I'm sure that you didn't have a chance to read through all of these, but essentially what we would do is ensure that the plan set has all of these and that they reflect the actual information included within the plan set. This is pretty common practice in most communities across the state of New Hampshire that are of any substantial size. It's really just to ensure that everything is standardized across the board. That said, there may be applications that are very small in nature that don't need some of these notes, but this is really intended to be sort of another form of a checklist that the board could use moving forward. I don't think there's any vote needed from the board this evening, but I wanted to get sign off on this general format because we are going to do the same thing for our subdivision application as well.
So Matt, I don't see anything about the architectural standards.
So there are, I believe there is something because I remember that came up when I was reading through it.
I think we were asking for context, photographs, and we discussed what we thought should be submitted. I can't remember.
Yeah, Vaughn, if I missed that, I apologize because that actually was a note that I had made in here for myself. So that's a good catch. Let me ensure that that gets included. And I can't believe that I missed that. So I apologize for that. I'll ensure that it gets into the document, though.
And I just have one other comment. I didn't know that plan set was a single word.
Yeah, I have seen it as a single word. I typically use it that way. It doesn't have to be, though. It may not be a dictionary word, so I can make it plan space set.
Yeah.
Okay, I can change that.
Okay, Matt, but at the end of the day here, I don't think we have to vote on this because this basically is everything that's in the site plan regulations now, right?
Yes, the only thing that I think yes, it is. The only thing I think you might need to vote on, and I made a note within this document, I think you should vote on the common site plan notes, though not this evening.
Okay.
If you're going to make those a requirement of every... Yeah, sorry, Vaughn.
I think you have to be very careful that you don't omit anything because it would then appear that it's not required.
Right.
Yes, but I did a lovely boilerplate cover my butt at the top that says that this is a minimum standard and the planning board, of course, does reserve the right to require anything not identified here, but I'm pretty sure that we have everything in here necessary.
Okay. Okay, so we want to table this and then bring it back for discussion after people have had a chance to again review the site plan review notes, right? And add architectural design standards to the list,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Okay, thanks, Matt. Okay, 2020 work plan prioritization. I think the impact fee should go at the top of the list. That ordinance.
I agree. I agree.
Is
I think
that,
the idea here was to prioritize. Yeah, go ahead, Kathy. Sorry.
is that something we could get done this year? I mean, you had talked about hiring a consultant and, I mean, can we get that done?
It depends how you want to do it. If the board is comfortable simply removing the fee, then you will have to do an impact fee basis study. That's why I suggested a consultant, and that's probably the proper way to do it.
Okay.
However, if you feel, and I think this is fair, if you feel the community and your observation of the ordinance that the fee is no longer needed, it is certainly within your jurisdiction to recommend removal of it. You just won't have the basis for its removal that would be ideal to have, and I don't think that's a huge issue, but yeah, I think it certainly could be accomplished this year, Kathy.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think we've heard rumbles about it for 2 or 3 years. But it being unfair and burdensome, especially for smaller houses.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, how do you folks want to, do you agree that this is an important issue that we should focus on?
Yeah, we could actually move it up instead of adopt architectural design standards, because we've already done that.
Right. Okay. All right, then that can go up. Also, parking was another issue, and Mike and Matt and I sort of got started on that. We had the discussions about parking in the downtown area, and the wordings was confusing, and so we actually are now looking at the whole ordinance. And we had our first meeting yesterday. We had a compliant meeting down by Dockside at 2 picnic tables with masks.
I was non-compliant for a little bit of it, but yes.
Well,
yeah.
right, but you were mostly. And so we have started with that one, and so that will be, we had already decided that we should be doing that, I think, as a board. Short-term rentals, we formed the committee, and I sort of am hoping that committee can come up with something by the fall. I don't know if that's being too aggressive or positive thinking on my part, or but I mean, I think it's an issue that people seem to be talking about. People have other things that you think we should be looking at?
I think we need to fix the really strange zone of the Cotton Mountain Historic District, and it's 300 feet from the right of way or something really bizarre. I think that's just a strange anomaly left over from something else.
Okay. All right. Is everybody okay with that? I mean, we never heard anything too much negative about that after the public hearing, but it is kind of bizarre. So, okay, what about a drive?
I did have conversations with a few.
Did you? I'm sorry.
Okay. No, it's okay, Kathy. I was just going to mention that I had a few conversations with people up there clarifying what the board was doing. That's all I was going to mention.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, what about drive-through restaurants? Got defeated for the second time. A large percent of the voters. Do you think we need to do anything else with that?
Is it worthwhile just to suggest that we'll review it and not spend a whole lot of time on it, but perhaps look at the two things that were voted down and see if we as a board agree with the reasons why they were voted down? So we ended up putting sort of an imprint on that.
How would you find out what the reasons were?
Well, I think what you're doing is you're looking at what the items were and the fact that they were voted down, and therefore if the planning board ends up agreeing with that vote and making a statement, that may be a useful statement.
I think we recommended that it be voted down.
Right.
I think both times, but at the same time, it may end up being that we should just look at it, reaffirm our sentiment, and then it's going to be, we have looked at it again and we agree.
Okay, well, we could put it on a future agenda as a discussion item. That's basically what you're saying, Peter?
Yes, and I don't think the discussion is going to last very long, but I think it's useful for the planning board to agree with what the town is saying, and therefore it may not come back up again. Okay,
well, I think that's a good discussion or a good suggestion, because I mean, otherwise Matt is left to say, well, whatever he has to say to people, they call him. But if we come out, have a discussion, come out with a specific stand on the issue, then I think that might help him out when he has to talk to people about this. So.
And I don't think it's going to be a long discussion.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Water quality master plan chapter. Does anybody have any?
Mike, I just want to point out, Mike, I see your note. Just so we all, has everybody seen Mike's note?
Yep.
and he can't. He has no microphone.
Oh. Okay.
Okay. He's listening now, though.
One of the things that had been discussed in the past was looking at the water quality, a new water quality chapter for the master plan.
Right.
And I don't know where that's gone to. It's been discussed in some areas, but I don't know how public that is.
Well, I mean, it is a recommendation in the master plan, and we do need to get started working on the priorities in the master plan. So I don't know, it just seems like, in my mind, an important issue with the cyanobacteria and a lot of other issues that have come up about stormwater management. So I'd like to see us get started.
Is there a model ordinance or something that's been presented that would fit?
There, maybe not a model ordinance, Vaughn, but there are communities that have done water resources chapters. But I think we should start from square one because I think that our needs are very different from others. And I think that we have a lot more direction from existing groups, whether it be the Planning Board, Board of Selectmen, or the Cyanobacteria Committee. I think we need to custom tailor our own chapter. And I've spoken to Kathy a little bit about this, and while it would be great to have an environmental consultant on board, I think we have a lot of local knowledge and expertise from people like Peter, Kathy, and each of you. I think we can wait on the consultant and get started on at least providing the structure for the chapter, and then get into some more substantive conversation about what's going to be in it a little later in the year. But I think there's no question there's a momentum that can be harnessed right now that we should take advantage of, because certainly water quality is top of mind for a lot of people, and I think we should try and take advantage of that. But there's no good model chapter or ordinance out there that I think Wolfeboro should look to as an example. I don't think communities have done a great job with this, aside from larger, what we call MS4 communities that are required to make stormwater management and infrastructure investments. Smaller towns are not doing the same thing. So I think we need to sort of pave our own way here.
Peter, would you be willing to sit down with Matt and myself to kind of kick around some ideas to then come back to the planning board with something a little more concrete?
Yes, that would be fine. One thing I'd suggest is that I believe that the natural resources chapter was added after the original one of the last master plan. And so therefore adding this one is not abnormal. It is something that we'd like to do and would continue. And I'd be more than happy to be very involved in the process.
Okay, then why don't the three of us meet, and then we'll report back to you folks with something more concrete. Okay? I don't hear any.
Should this not be part of natural resources?
It was not completely looked at. It was not the focus of the natural resources. Natural resources, we're looking at lands, we're looking at all sorts of other things. But right now, I think that there is need to have specifically water quality, especially because of the cyanobacteria issues, the ongoing milfoil issues. And one of the things which is an interesting bit of data is that when you look at the boats that are launched onto Lake Winnipesaukee for a bass tournament, you find that 10% of those boats were last launched in Lake Champlain. Lake Champlain ends up having approximately 40 different invasive species. And so therefore, these are issues which we as a town are going to be affected by, and we need to look at that kind of issue.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't we do that and plan on reporting back at the May 19th meeting? Okay. Colden Farms. Matt, do you need to tell us anything about that?
I'm
Matt?
unmuted. Before we move on, I just want to understand what the priorities are as we just discussed them. So I heard Cotton Mountain, short-term rentals, parking, impact fees, and water quality. Is that correct?
Yes.
I think the impact fees were going to the head.
Correct.
Right.
But did I get the other ones right?
Yep.
I
Parking.
think I did. I just want. Yep.
Well, and the road standards, we're going to be doing those.
Yeah, and I'll talk about those in a few minutes, though.
Oh,
Yeah.
And-
okay.
And drive-in restaurants, we're just going to have a discussion about that.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. All right. So does that give enough guidance
Yes,
for the work plan? Okay.
I think it does.
Okay. All right. How about Colden Farms?
Just an update. If you do hear that work is going on up at Colden Farms, it is. They're working actively on the remainder of the subdivision up there. Our consulting engineer has been up there 4 times in total. I've been up there twice over the past month and a half. The drainage is all finalized and stabilized. Road construction is beginning. Despite market conditions, we think that development will be moving forward. As a reminder, you signed or entered into a development agreement with the new owner of the property back in 2018, which basically holds signature on the final plans until such time that everything is constructed to the satisfaction of the town, in exchange for the town not holding security or financial security on the project. So we are actively monitoring the construction. I've asked our engineer to be over present at the site to ensure that we have good road construction based on the materials up there, and particularly because Wolfeboro is famous for some issues with road construction. But everything looks good, and we have a tremendous amount of confidence in the developer so far. So all very, very positive.
Okay, what about the issues that the neighbors had about the condition of the existing road?
So good question, Kathy. Thanks for bringing that up. So we are also holding signature on the final plans until that last overlay work is done. So that is still a condition of approval. They will have to overlay the road, but we told the developer that that would not be in the best interest of the owners to have that done and then have the construction vehicles move over it. They'll do it when they leave the project.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Everybody okay with that? All
Yep.
right. Okay. So the parking and loading requirements, we've kind of already touched on that. And that will be coming probably in maybe June or so, Matt?
I think so. I think so. We, as Kathy mentioned before, we sat down and had a nice conversation yesterday. Kathy and Mike worked really hard on making some recommendations on the existing parking ordinance. Not a lot is broken, in my opinion, as we went through it. But one of the big substantial changes that we're making is doing just what we did with the landscaping standards and moving a good portion of the parking standards to the site plan review regulations, because that's really where I think Kathy and Mike are getting the feeling that that's where they belong. We'll continue to keep the existing dimensional and count requirements in the zoning ordinance, making that part still pretty strict, but we'll give the planning board and pass the planning board some very flexible review power in the context of shared parking management plans, and really the downtown parking scheme, which includes the Wolfeboro Falls and Bay Street Limited Business District. So all positive changes, but I think we can have those ready for you in June based on the progress we're making.
Okay. And our charrette got postponed. Do we have a date? It was supposed to take place in a couple of weeks, actually.
So we hadn't really gone public with the date because by the time that we had the date pinned down at the end of February, we sort of saw this coming. So we've now discussed moving the charrette, and we've confirmed, at least tentatively, for October 2nd and 3rd for the charrette to take place. Felt it was really in the best interest of everybody, and that it would have been really kind of irresponsible and damaging to the process to have it, even in the event that May 2nd and 3rd might have worked. So we are pushing it off to the fall.
Okay, ADA exemption in the zoning regulations, that was an issue that Mike had brought up. But do you want to go over that, Matt?
Sure, and I think Mike's email covers it pretty well. Mike was really ahead of the curve on this concern about this new federal guidance. He had done a tremendous amount of research on its implications on the town's zoning ordinance and also site plan and subdivision review applications as applicable. Ultimately, after doing more review, and really Mike had taken the lead on this really proactively, I think Mike kind of came to the conclusion, and Mike, I hate speaking for you, but I know you can't speak for yourself right now, but Mike really thinks that maybe we should sit back and observe what other communities in the state is doing as a whole. I think that's a responsible thing to do. I do know that in consultation with our land use attorney for the town, even they were not prepared to provide really concise guidance on the issue. And that to me is a signal that we should sit back and wait on this. Though I think to Mike's point, it may become an issue moving forward, and we may be sitting here in 2 years or even less time, potentially need to consider amendment to either our zoning or our site plan review regulations. But I think we're in a holding pattern for this point in time.
Okay, all right, thank you. And the road standards.
Just again, keeping you in the loop on this, we have a draft of the road standards from not the consulting engineer that you see here, but actually Underwood Engineers has prepared a new draft of the road standards. The new draft of the road standards is intended to be a little more flexible and context sensitive. We've been talking about context sensitive road standards based on volume for a long time. So we're trying to add or give the Public Works Department a bit more authority when it comes to roadway width, right-of-way width, gravel, all sorts of really kind of the road width specs, but not a lot of flexibility on the material, the depth of the road, the proper drainage base, those sorts of things. But Dave is sort of taking the lead on this project. We did have Ty and Bond, our consulting engineer, take a look at the new draft that was released. They do have a few comments, which I passed along to you here. So we're in the process of making amendments to the road standards draft. If the board's comfortable, I'd like to have Brad take a look at this before the board reviews it in final form. I think it would be good to have Brad's expertise on this project just as a second set of eyes or a third set of eyes. But I think this should be ready for your consideration in July or August of this year.
I would just like to opine on the 75-foot right-of-way. That is huge. 50 is big.
Yes.
75 is huge.
Yes, I agree. I think that they're used to. I don't even know that I've ever seen a 75-foot right-of-way on a subdivision road. I don't know if you have, Brad.
No,
I haven't.
I've only seen 50s.
Yeah.
50 is big.
50 is the old standard, if you will, but to your point, Vaughn, we are talking about having more flexible right-of-way widths for small volume roads. I mean, if you're going to do a very small conservation subdivision of 3 or 4 lots, there's not necessarily a need for a 50-foot right-of-way, and it could actually increase the development impact. So we want to have some more flexibility.
Yeah.
Right. So we want to have some more flexibility to potentially go down to, a 19-foot road or something smaller even, if it's going to be acceptable to the Public Works Department. So we are working on that. But yeah, to your point, that was one thing that really stuck out, the 75-foot right-of-way width. We need to talk to Underwood about that specific recommendation.
And concrete sidewalks, those are not normal. Those are downtown sidewalks.
Yes, I would say that concrete sidewalks sidewalks generally are not likely to occur within a subdivision, quite honestly. That is not the standard within our site plan review regulations, but I can take a look at that and just confirm why the concrete was the proposal there.
Okay, and Brad, you'd be willing to take a look at these before it comes back to us?
Yeah, absolutely. Be happy to.
Okay. All
Thanks,
right.
Brad. Sorry, I didn't mean to give you more work. I just thought it would be good for you to take a look at it. Just make some sense.
No, that's fine.
Thanks, Brad.
All right, that's great. Thank you. Master plan status. Where is our master plan?
Good question. And Kathy, you obviously forced me to put this on the agenda against my will. She did.
Yes,
So
I did.
You did. And I agreed. So I am still behind on getting the document printed. And I need to come clean about that. So I am behind on that project. And I also heard over the weekend, actually, that there are people having issues with downloading the document online because of its size. And I actually spent some time on that. I'm having a heck of a time getting the document below 50 megabytes. So I am actively working on that. But I have not gotten it printed, Kathy. I apologize. And I apologize to the board members. But the bigger issue is that apparently people can't even download the document online. And that's a new issue I was not aware of. So that should be fixed this week. I'm not having the issue, but I'm actually kind of curious if you all are. So if you have a chance this week and you think about it, if you wouldn't mind going to the planning board site and trying to download it, I haven't
Okay.
had problems with it myself, but apparently others are. It is a huge document, but I do want to make sure it's at least.
I ended up trying to download it and it said draft on it.
Yeah, so that Peter, that is the most recent.
I ended up
version.
trying to download it, and what I ended up getting said draft on it.
That's
I'm also going to suggest that trying to get it printed is going to be difficult because printers are non-essential businesses.
Yes, but I will tell you that there are steps that we need to take before it gets printed. So I should not put the burden purely on the printer. I share the burden in the fact that I have not made some specific edits to it. So I can't kick the can to the printer. I'm responsible for the delay.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe June?
I don't want to put a date on it, Kathy, because I've failed you on that already. So
Yeah, okay. All
I
right.
hesitate to do that.
Okay. I'm just concerned about getting the chapter to various groups like the Energy Committee and Conservation. And I'm wondering if we could just do the chapters, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, and that's, I mean, I could literally take the watermark off today and the plan will not change. So that the document is complete the way it's printed. The content is not changing. It is literally just some of the graphic items that I haven't gotten around to in InDesign just yet because I'm just not that savvy. So the text is exactly as it is in the document online. So that is all accurate information. It's just a few of the photos and a few of the text formatting issues that I need to correct.
Oh, okay. All right.
So please don't feel like you're held up on implementation or passing the chapter out. It is ready to be, and the implementation table particularly is ready to be distributed.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then maybe once things loosen up a little, like June or July, we can take it around to the various groups.
And one of the things that I was thinking about in shortening the document, Kathy, is just we had talked about this, just pulling the implementation table out as a separate document, because that's really what we're going to use. We're not going to necessarily use the background or factual text that was the backup for the chapters. We're really going to be using that list of recommendations, goals.
Right. Actually, I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
I mean, and the rest of the document could be a resource for people.
Okay.
Is everybody okay with that? Well, okay, let's see what we can work on with that, Matt.
Okay.
That's great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, administrative decision, Gala, 23 Bay Street. You submitted a memo for us of your thoughts.
Yes.
How to proceed with the project, which ultimately is going to be coming to us for a site plan.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. So just a quick comment on this. I know I don't share administrative opinions with the board very often, but I wanted to share this one in with a few things in mind. One, the Gala project will likely be coming to you either hopefully in June of this year. The site is a complicated one based on a couple existing conditions and the existing approval that's in place on the site. I hope you have a chance to look through this, and I certainly am not looking for the board's endorsement because I think it would be inappropriate, but I did just want to make you aware of this because the town is involved in the project to some extent as a grantee for some of the monies that are flowing to Gala. I don't feel it's a conflict of interest, but I just want to be as transparent about my participation and involvement in the process as the planner. And I felt that sharing this opinion with you was a critical element of that. Ultimately, when I reviewed the project and the proposed building design and site design, I did come to the conclusion that I believe the parking situation will be resolved. However, I do think the project, because of the reconfiguration of the site, does require the planning board's review. So you will be seeing that shortly. In addition, some of the facade changes and architectural elements will be a subject of your review. in the context of the new architectural design standards. I'll be working with Gala to work on potentially a waiver request for that. But really, again, just wanted to share my thoughts on this project as proposed. And this is really giving them guidance on how to come to the planning board when they do so in June or July of this year.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments?
So I think if any waiver for the architectural design comes in, it should have a rationale why it fits the town, why it looks like other buildings in our town.
Okay.
You know, that's the whole crux of the issue.
Yeah, I think, and I had spoken to Vaughn a little bit about this, I think about 2 months ago or a month ago. I am letting them know about that, Vaughn. I know that that's your request, and I think that's wise in the context of the new regs. I think they require that when you're going for a waiver. So they're aware of that request. I've also encouraged them, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but I've encouraged them to be prepared and careful with their design documents in the event that they are required to change the design of the building in the event that the waiver is not granted by the board. So they know that it's a risk. They are committed to the design that they're going to bring to you, but they're aware of the fact that they might be sent back to the drawing board by the planning board based on these new design standards.
So there has been no attempt made to, you know, make, instead of flat roofs, peaked roofs, nothing like that?
So I think that I guess I can't speak for Gala and or their architect. I think that they've designed a building that they feel is most functional for their proposal. And I don't know how peaked roofs fit into that. I simply don't know. And I guess I'm hesitant to comment any more beyond that because I just don't know what they've considered, to be quite honest with you, Vaughn.
Okay.
The first architectural rendering was the one that I shared with you. That's the only one I've seen.
Okay, but they certainly are aware of the standards. There's no question about that, right?
Yes, I mean that was actually the basis for this entire conversation.
Yeah.
I got a copy of the architectural and I started looking at it and the site design, and that's sort of where we moved them towards the site plan review. Yeah, so they are aware. They are also aware that it could get denied potentially, and
Okay.
that's a risk that they're going to take, I think.
Okay. And anything else under other business? Matt, as far as the next meeting is concerned, we still think that we're going to be using this format, but we may not. Is that the situation, or can you explain that to?
I can. So, and I want to mention an email that I received from Mike too, because I know he can't speak right now, but we are working under some very tricky time constraints. The primary one being that the applications that you're going to hear on May 5th were required to be noticed with time, date, place certain as of last Friday at 3 p.m. We have to send those notices in very, very early. As a result, we committed to having a virtual only meeting of the board. And although we recognize that we may be under different regulation at that point from the governor's office, we may be more comfortable with an in-person meeting, the notice has already been sent out. And therefore, I feel that we have no choice but to do a virtual only meeting based on that document. So I am working with applicants to do test runs of the technology. I'm confident that we will be in good shape, despite my technological issues this evening, which I know what the cause of that is. I think it will be just fine for the board. I think that the applicants are prepared well to do this, and I think they'll be taking advantage of screen sharing to show different plans that they have for their proposals. I was talking to Brad before the meeting. I am curious as to how public input will work functionally, but I think it will be I think it will work fairly well. I mean, we heard the applicant tonight for the impact fee waiver. They were able to comment, ask questions, get those questions answered. I'm confident that the public process will actually be just fine. The one thing that we are trying to prevent is any new information being submitted. I know I've mentioned this to the board before. We are making applicants aware that if they submit anything new the night of the meeting, that there's the potential that the board may feel uncomfortable acting if the abutters and the public or even the board members don't have access to that information. So they're being cautioned of that, and therefore we're really looking at their applications as signed, sealed, delivered the Friday that you'll receive your packets. So I just want to make you aware of that.
Yeah.
And I really will limit any interaction with you all after that Friday in order to not complicate the cases for your consideration. It's a really long answer, but I think we're going to be okay.
Okay, well, if somebody does give us some new information in the night of the meeting, I would think that would be an automatic continuance.
I think that I'm sure there'll be some exception to that rule, but I mean, if it might be something very minor, and I don't even know what. I have nothing in my mind. One thing that does pop into my head is that the Harriman Hill application received AOT comment today. I know that the applicant is working diligently on addressing those AOT comments, but that sort of thing is just the kind of example where that may be coming in the Monday before the meeting, and the board will be in a situation where it has to determine what it wants to do with that kind of information if there are amendments made. So please don't panic. We're going to try to be as flexible as possible, but it may result in applications having to be pushed until the mid-May meeting if there's something really substantial that comes up.
Okay, all right.
And I should point out one other thing. On the public notice that went out, we do have a substantial amount of cases for that evening's agenda. I put on the public notice that the board reserves the right to continue any applications that it does not open before 9:30 p.m. You can choose to take advantage of that provision or not, but it is possible that we won't get to one or two of the applications before even 10 p.m. that evening. And I have alerted the applicants to the fact that you may continue those cases till mid-May. So that's fully within your jurisdiction to do that.
Okay.
So I hope we get through everything.
Yeah.
We'll see.
That's, yes, I hope so too. Okay. We're down at the bottom of the list. The only other item is the approval of the minutes for April 7th. Does anyone have any issues? If not, I'll make a motion to approve the April 7th, 2020 minutes.
Second.
And motion has been made and seconded. Roll call vote. Von Dugan,
Yes.
Mike Cotter, he gave me a thumbs up as an approval. Peter Goodwin.
Yes.
Okay. Brad Harriman
Yes.
and Kathy Barnard. I'll vote in favor of approving the April 7th minutes. Okay. Anybody want to bring up any other issue? All right. Then somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay. And Mike seconded that motion. So another roll call vote. Von Dugan,
Yes.
Mike Hodder votes in favor of adjournment. Peter Goodwin.
Yes.
Okay. In favor. Brad Harriman
Yes.
and Kathy Barnett. I'm in favor of adjournment. Okay, folks. Thank you very much. We're getting a little better at this, right, Matt?
I mean, I was the problem tonight.
Well,
I was using my trusty MacBook book, and that actually failed me. So I went back to my Dell mid-meeting. It was perfect. So this has been working well. I hope you all feel the same. I hope everyone's doing well.
yeah, and actually, I looked at some of the applications online, and it's pretty easy to do that, and for me to say that. How about that? So,
Yeah, and we'll be updating those applications that are online too. We do have some new materials, so we'll do that in the coming weeks.
yeah. Okay. All right, folks.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Be
Right.
safe. Good night.
Good night,
Thank you
everyone.
very much, everyone. Have a good night. Thanks, Leanne.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, see
All
you,
right, bye now.
Leanne.